Last year, we brought you the Women's High Tea. This year, we take it up a notch. ZFM Stereo, in partnership with Tel One, Safades and Amtech Motors, bring you the Ladies' Luncheon at Meikles Hotel, Stewart Room, under the theme Press for Progress on the 25th of March 2018. Tickets are $50 each and $500 for a table. Call Rainbow for inquiries on 0784 769 000 or come and get your tickets at CFM Stereo. Don't miss the opportunity to receive knowledge for action and have the power to make a difference.
The platform.
Ladies' Luncheon,
Step up
bringing women
and
together.
speak out. The platform. Step up and speak up.
Good evening, welcome to the platform. I am Lisa Dube, and this is a special edition of the platform as we celebrate Women's History Month here on ZFM Stereo. Now, as most of us would know, women constitute over 50% of Zimbabwe's population, with some statistics pegging at 52%. Now, statistics are just figures, but whatever the case, women are the majority, yet they're the most marginalized in this country. This evening, we are joined by some of the most influential women in this country to share their life stories as well as how they have assisted other women to climb up the ladder. I'm joined by Valetta Muthimukulu, who is the banking director for Barclays Zimbabwe. Good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening, Mona Lisa.
I also have Chipo Ndudzo, who is the managing director for Providence Human Capital Consultancy.
Good evening, Mona Lisa.
And we'll be joined later by the Chief Executive Officer of TransMedia, Florence Sigudu Matambo. She is on her way. But ladies, you are women that are holding high positions in this country, and obviously some of the women would want to know, how did you get there, and how did you get to a position where you are leading a whole organization?
Okay, looks like I'm starting. So basically my story, which I believe is the same story as a lot of other women. So the fact that when we're telling our stories, they sound like big stories, but they're the stories that every other woman talks about. So my story basically started when I joined Standard Chartered Bank. I left Standard Chartered Bank, and then I joined Insco Africa Limited. And when I got there, I joined a division that basically had all men, and I was the only female. But the confidence that I had received from my mom, from the female teachers that I'd met, and from a whole lot of other women kind of propelled me. My story is not a story where I would say I was marginalized, maybe. But in that, Mrs. Dingani from Standard Chartered, one of the women that empowered me, I could see women. My mom is a widow, empowered me. So I could see women doing things and being good at them, and raising kids and raising 6 children, all school going. So those kind of things kind of just made me have self-confidence that I can do stuff that I want to do.
So you have been empowered by other women?
By lots of other women.
Okay,
basically.
I'm glad you brought that up, because on a number of women workshops that I attend, there are a number of issues that young women bring up to say, you know what, these women that are in powerful positions are not helping us move forward. What are your comments to that?
I think it depends. In some cases, yes, women do want to be, and I'll say not just women, but men also. Men also do not pull other men. Neither do women. So it's a human being issue rather than a woman's issue. So I actually don't believe in the yes, women pull each other down and everything.
Pull down syndrome, they call it.
I don't believe that. I actually think human beings do that. Naturally, human beings want to fight and move forward, and it's about success. So if you're looking at a men's organization where they're just men, the same stories do happen. So yes, there are human beings like that, but I will not specifically say there are women like that. And I also feel that there are lots of other women, like the women that I've mentioned, who have pulled me up, sometimes not even as silent witnesses, sometimes as women that I'm seeing and emulating from afar, but not necessarily them coming to mentor me, but just seeing them and saying, hey, those are the hidden figures that are propelling me silently.
Okay, that's the interesting perspective you've brought in the conversation, that, it's not a gender issue sometimes, it's just a human being issue. Valetta, let's move on to you. How has been your journey as a woman climbing up the ladder?
So, To be quite honest, Mona Lisa, I think the stories are the same. I think for me, it was a situation where I fundamentally believe that opportunity must meet preparation. So I think that there's a part that you have to play. I find that sometimes as women, we sometimes don't take as much risks in the workplace to try new things. So for me, it really was a journey where I tried new things. If I saw an opportunity and people said, and I got feedback that says, we think that you may be good at this, I went and I tried it. And for me, that's the journey that, that's how I moved through the ranks within Barclays. I tried new things. I've worked in several different departments, stretching from areas like, retail banking into project management, into marketing and corporate affairs, and now into retail banking. So for me, it's about putting yourself up there, believing in yourself, and also taking those opportunities and not being afraid to fail. And for me, that's been the hallmark, I think, in terms of that journey. And of course, along the way, you will always meet people who give you advice, some of it easy advice to swallow, some of it a little bit of a bitter pill, but I think feedback is such a gift that if you have an open mind to it, that you can always use that to build yourself to grow. So, and I think that's important in building a career.
And I'm happy you are from a financial institution, because we want to talk about the issue of financial inclusion of women. And I know Chipo earlier was mentioned that she also has a financial background. So I'm sure we're going to have an interesting conversation around financial inclusion. And I understand that the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe has a national financial inclusion strategy, which we started in 2016 up to 2020. And really one of the major drives is to make sure that women are included in the financial space, in the formal space. And one of the pointers, the strategies that they put in, they say banks and financial institutions also have to play a part to make sure that women are empowered financially. What role as Barclays Bank are you playing to ensure that women are empowered financially?
So I think what people miss when we talk about financial inclusion sometimes is that the first step is really being financially literate. And I'm not talking about being competent at maths or anything. It's just being financially literate and being clever about and knowing how to manage your money. And that's the first step. So we spend a lot of time with young people as Barclays, working on them, just helping them to understand and grow in their own financial literacy, knowing how to handle money before they handle a lot of money. And I think that's the first most important step. So we work with young people, both young boys and young girls, to try and empower them and make sure that they are financially literate. And we work through and with a number of organizations. We do a lot of work with Junior Achievement Zimbabwe, which does fantastic work with young people, teaching them how to be better entrepreneurs. We do some work through with Boost Fellowship that also work with young people in a different way. So financial literacy is a big part of what we do. We also believe that you need to also empower the whole person. So we do a lot of stuff around life skills and work readiness, because I think that also empowers the young person as a whole being. Having done that, we do have, for people who are old enough to come into the bank, have a banking relationship, to borrow and start their businesses, we have a fund that we are in partnership with a large multilateral organization that's open particularly with a focus to youth and women. And I think for me, that conversation then gets bigger than having the facilities available. I think there is also the issue of saying the facilities are available. There are facilities available focused on women, focused on young people. But I think the issue is then, do the people come in and do they understand how to access those finances? And this is why financial literacy for us is an important place to start.
That was actually going to be my next question, to say, how do they access these programs? Like, how do they know about it? Because when we talk about marginalizations, we're talking about people that are probably in the informal sector, as we know, that is currently running the economy. And most of us are women. Most of the people that are involved in the informal business are women. They're vendors. They do so many things. So how do they get access to these services that your bank or maybe various financial institutions are providing?
So I think that whilst there's a lot of work that's been done around communication and getting the message out there, of course it's a big issue and a lot more can still be done. And I think ZFM will play its part in that space. But the information gets there, whether it is through brochures, a little bit through the newspapers, and it's out there in sort of the media. But we as Barclays do a lot of work with SMEs in terms of outreaches and training programs, just to make sure we talk to people and understand how they can access these funds. And I think that's the first part. But I think for me, where I think we also need a bit of work is just for the confidence for women to be able to walk into a bank, find out what is there, what is available. What we found is that a lot of the times people will walk past and then the information is not there. But you come in and you access and you talk to people and you will also get to know. But in as much as we can, using your above the line media, various media forms, we do try and get the message out there. And I think the Reserve Bank is also doing its part to do that as well.
Okay, you tune into the platform. We're talking women issues this evening on ZFM Stereo. Our WhatsApp number is 0731 168 We'll also be taking your calls later on. Our phone call number is 0772 168 I'll engage Chipo in this conversation. You were speaking about, like I did say earlier on, you were in the Human Capital Consultancy, but you did say you have a financial background. Maybe based on what Valetta here has been saying about the women lacking confidence to actually walk into a banking hall and find out the information that is available to them. Are you familiar with this issue that she's talking about?
Yes, certainly. Valetta has just hit the nail on the head, because I think it's the confidence issue. But more importantly also is there is so many projects that people talk about in this country. So Zimbabwe, you hear that everybody's doing chickens, is doing tajashi at some point. Everybody's doing those things. And because we then don't get the literacy, not, what should I do if I go into the bank, but just knowing which sector to go into. What are the areas? If we all go and do chickens, then who's going to buy and who's going to sell? How much we're going to drop the prices of things and stuff like that. So that's the other thing, that when we are talking to women, for instance, at Providence Human Capital, the employees, the female employees and the male employees that get loans, for instance, we do what we call counseling before you actually use your money. So someone will come and say, I need a loan to go and buy a grinding mill at my village. And you know, we've got two ladies, Benedict and Priscilla, who then sit with them and say, why do you want to buy a grinding mill? How much money do you think you're going to make? You're working in Harare, who's going to look after it? How are you going to pay for it and everything? Whereas the person would ordinarily have gotten a loan, which becomes very difficult because the interest rates are quite high to repay. So we really start from that when somebody wants to get a loan, especially from the workspace kind of thing. And in terms of self-confidence, yes, we all scared of the bank. I think it was Mkadota who was saying, Bengi Arisi Jerry.
Why are women from your observations, obviously, and from your research, why is it that women lack confidence to actually walk into a banking hall and find out what they can get from it?
It's two things. It's also not lack of confidence, but also being scared of loans. A lot of us grew up being scared of borrowing money, because money comes with debt, which can be burdensome. And if you don't have a steady income to repay, if you're not sure in your business, they'll take your house. And they'll take, so as women, I think, me personally, I start thinking about all these things. So I think outside how am I going to repay this? And if something happens, then what? So there's also this, I think women are more, they would think more of the situation than a man would, because I'm thinking, then if this doesn't happen and I don't repay, then my kids will not go to school, and then this and then this. So before I even go to the bank, I've already done 100 questions and thought, no, it's not going to happen.
And you were from a bank. How is the uptake of loans by women?
So it would be significantly lower, or a little bit lower than that of men. But I think the issues in terms of the household burden that women carry, the fact that for women they're considering and balancing a lot more balls in terms in the air than the average men. So that manifests in some form of a greater risk aversion than you would have for a man when it comes to borrowing. But I think women, when they do borrow, we know for a fact that they pay better, that they will look after, they'll be more responsible with that money. And this is why all of this for us as financial institutions is important to complement it with financial literacy, because that education helps them to gain the confidence to say, actually, if I take the money and if I have, a good plan, it'll work. And I think quite frankly, I think the other thing that we need to develop is just the whole financial system as a whole. So you need to have different types of financial institutions that will serve different types of people and different organizations. So you can't have everybody walking into a commercial bank, for example. Some people may find that quite imposing, but if it's a microfinance that is run by somebody that they know, they're more comfortable. If it's a savings group that is running in the local community and you're having interventions at that level, people would be more comfortable. So I think the development of the whole financial system is an important part of this women's empowerment drive when it comes to financial inclusion.
Okay, so let's talk about an issue that we kind of touched on earlier on when you were speaking about your journey, Chipo, about how you've been empowered by other women. Let's talk about the ladies that are in here personally. How have you also played a part in other women's lives to make sure that they're also going up the ladder? You said that, Chipo, you spoke about how it was your story is not really about being marginalized. You had people that were pushing you, but it's not every woman's story. Women have different kinds of stories. Some are being pushed down by other women, some by men, So how have you, as women that are in these positions where you can actually empower other women, how have you personally made sure that you played your part?
So I'm a strong believer in mentorship. Mentorship is a two-way process. So I do always have a number of young ladies that I'm mentoring at any one single point in time, because for me that is almost the easiest intervention and one that gives the most, because you're giving of your time, of your knowledge, of your experience, and some of the things you've shared, both positive and negative, and I'm a strong believer in mentor. So I mentor probably about 3 young people at any one point in time that come in and we have a chat and we talk through some of this life's journey. I think that's one. I think for me the other thing is I do have a passion for working with young people, and I'm fortunate enough to be part of organizations that allow me to do that. So I do a little bit of work with junior achievement outside of my, the partnerships that we have with them as a bank, just in my personal capacity, just working with them either at a sort of a senior level or talking through with some of their students just to see what is happening and what is going through. And the life skills component is something that I'm passionate about. When we talk to young people, particularly the young girls, about some of the things that they need to survive in the world, the impact that some of the decisions that they make as they are young can have on them. For me, that life skills and those conversations that we have, mostly in group settings with Junior Achievement Zimbabwe, is also important. And then I also do a little bit of work in partnership with International Youth Foundation, because again, that is young people. But again, for me, it is the girls that are there that I love to talk to about, particularly some of the social things that happen in their lives, whether it is the decision on how to protect themselves and to make sure that they don't get into sexual relationships without understanding what they're doing, because when they have those ramifications, what will they have? Organizationally, within Barclays, we have a very strong women's network forum that the bank supports. I'm a patron of that, and through that, we do quite a lot of work with women, talking not about necessarily work issues alone, but also social issues, because you realize that when women come into the workplace, sometimes they come out as poor performers, but it's because maybe, something's happening with the child. And when something's happening with the child or something's not right at home, the woman carries that burden through. So the Women's Network Forum, the things that we do through that forum is very important, just to make sure that we help the women as whole women when they come into the workplace.
And how has the feedback been from the young women that you have mentored?
So it differs, right? I've mentored there's one young lady that I've mentoring, and for me, mentorship is not really about trying to create a mini-me. It's about helping that person become themselves. So we would never really sit down and have a session that says, this is your feedback, you've been a great mentor. I've never had that conversation. I think for me is I've watched the young ladies that I've mentored. They have grown, they have blossomed into who they want to be. They're confident in their careers. If they've made their mistakes, they're able to own up to their mistakes and be accountable to themselves, about themselves. And I think for me that is a good measure of success, when you see this young person blossom and they can look back and say, because of that intervention, I think I am a better version, or the better version of myself. And I think that for me is a good measure of success, and I'm happy with that.
Okay, I would also like to welcome Florence Matambo from TransMedia Corporation. She's the Chief Executive Officer. She's just joined us in the studio. Welcome, Florence.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
Yeah, it's good you finally made it. All right, we're having a conversation on how each of the women here have contributed to actually making lives of other women that are rising up better. Because I remember when I attended, I think it was the manifesto, when the Speaker of Parliament says the only way that women can actually go up the ladder is if women empower themselves. And us being the majority of the country, then that is very possible. So each and every one of us has to play a role to make sure that is possible. So you are in the Human Capital Consultancy, and you are into maybe hiring and making sure that women are, maybe not necessarily women, but just maybe human capital in general. How has been your recruitment when it comes to women?
Thank you, Mona Lisa. So basically, as Providence Human Capital and as the MD, we have deliberately set out to actually employ women through our clients. So we have factories that would have 3 women working in the factory and 300 men. And I can tell you now that in most of these places, we have more than 50 women working, it is a deliberate drive that we've taken as Providence. The other thing that we've done as Providence is when I was working for Insco Africa Limited, and this SBU, which then turned into Providence, was employing 6 women and about 30 men. And now we've got 25 women and the balance is men. So we've deliberately said we're going to go out there and make sure that women are employed, especially if they're good at what they do. So it's not just employing women for the sake of employing them, but employing them because they know what they're doing. The other thing that we've done is we have deliberately said we are going to start purchasing from women certain things. If it is a women's organization that is bringing stationery or whatever, and the woman is good and is competent and can do the same as the men, we will deliberately go out there and try and support, because we believe, of course, we've come from a marginalized perspective as women, and we're just affirming. It's just affirmative.
And how has the response been with the interaction of the various organizations that you work with to actually say, look, you need to employ more women? How has the response been?
The response has been fantastic, and the results of these organizations have been good. So we've been pleased, and our clients have been pleased that we've brought in women. They've got a certain touch, a certain look when it comes to quality of products as well. So yes, they've actually thought that it's a good idea. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to engage Florence into this conversation. She is from TransMedia Corporation, and she's the Chief Executive Officer there. And Florence, you are in the media industry, which is, well, it's male-dominated. It's mostly, yeah. So as a woman, and you are at the top, how do you handle the pressure?
Well, you determine your own destiny, really. I've been in the corporate world for a number of years. And therefore, you really need to know how to navigate. You've got to be good. That's the starting point. You've got to know what you're doing and what you want in life. But let me take you a little bit back into my history. I worked for an international bank for a number of years. And while I was there, you need to carry the torch for everyone else. You need to set the pace for the younger people or younger women. A woman in position, you must remember, you're not just there to earn money. You're there to also make sure that you are the torch bearer. You are setting the pace. You are building the confidence for everybody else that's around you so that they can believe in women. Historically, women have always been marginalized, and as women, we go up the ladder. We must make sure that we are setting basically a good example. And you are not just there to work. You are just there to make sure that you do things right and you do the right thing all the time, so that people employing will know that women can deliver. Anywhere where you go, you must make sure that you carry that torch. So you ask, I'm in the broadcast industry. I was in banking for a number of years, and I held various senior positions. Amongst men, I was the only woman amongst the top directors in that bank. And it's not easy. But you must remember, you're doing it not just for yourself. You're doing it for all the girls, for all the women, that you leave a legacy of being good, of knowing what you do. And I continue to do that. And in the media industry, yes, certainly, it's tough, but I lead an organization of engineers as we speak. I'm a person, I'm not a woman. That's what you must remember. If you start considering yourself as a woman, already you are taking yourself a step back because you're thinking of yourself as a woman. Take out the WO and leave the ME and remove the E and put an A. I'm a man. That's what it is. Full stop.
So that way you don't feel victimized all the time.
Not
Or
at all.
Yes.
And people, you allow them to victimize you because you think, just because you're a woman. Why? Stand up for yourself and for everybody else. Demand your space in this world, and nobody has refused to do that. Where you are allowing everything to happen to yourself. And you're taking apologies for everything that you do because you're a woman. You're waiting for the men to pave the way for you. Why are you waiting for anybody to pave your way? You know how Shokunze, right? Ukapiwa nyembe peka. You are waiting for somebody to put nyembes on you. You must just determine your own destiny. Women need to really just know that they've got the capacity, they've got the opportunities, but you must work twice as hard as the men do, because that mentality is still there in our environment, not just in Zimbabwe, everywhere in the world.
That's an interesting perspective from Florence there. She says, don't make anyone victimize you for being a woman. You tuned into the platform. We'll take a show back. We'll be right back.
Z.
You and I make so much stuff. When you got me all messed up. Yeah, you got me holding back.
My station, your station.
Last year, we brought you the Women's High Tea. This year, we take it up a notch. ZFM Stereo, in partnership with Tel One, Safades, and Amtech Motors, bring you the Ladies' Luncheon at Meikles Hotel, Stewart Room, under the theme Press for Progress on the 25th of March 2018. Tickets are $50 each and $500 for a table. Call Rainbow for inquiries on 0784 769 000 or come and get your tickets at CFM Stereo. Don't miss the opportunity to receive knowledge for action and have the power to make a difference. The Ladies' Luncheon, bringing women together.
Z.
What's going on? This is Drizzy. What up, people? What's good? It is your boy Whiskey. What I tried to do was find the perfect balance between rapping and melody. And I need a one dance.
Your hits on one station. CFM Stereo.
Z.
Grips on your ways, front way, back way. You know that I don't play. Streets not safe, but I never run away, even when I'm
Your hits on one station. CFM Stereo.
The platform. Step up and speak up.
Welcome back to the platform. I'm Mona Lisa. I'm joined by Valetta Muthimukulu, who is the banking director for Barclays Zimbabwe. I also have Florence Sigudu Matambo, who is the chief executive officer at TransMedia, and I also have Chipo Ndudzo, the managing director of Providence Human Capital Consultancy. Now we've been having an interesting conversation off air, even just before the break. We're talking about a number of things about how women should not should not put themselves in a position where they're victimized. But we want to talk about an issue where maybe let's talk about policies in the workspace. In as much as women will be making sure that they're empowering themselves, they're having a decent education, and making sure that there are opportunities and they grab them, but they need a support system. And we're talking about laws, we're talking about policies, maybe a general policy in the workspace that favor women or make sure that women actually advance in the workspace. Do you think, I will engage Chipo here, do you think that we have adequate policies that empower women in the workspace?
I think to a large extent, I believe that, and also because our constitution, which is the highest lawmaking body in the country, has deliberately talked about the 50-50 policy in almost everything, in areas of politics, in areas of labor, all those spaces. And then when you look at our Labor Act itself, it does look at that. If you look at the maternity leave, which has been increased, and the number of years and months and all that has come through has been taken out. And if you look at most workspaces, they do look at women, and they've put forward, mostly like I said in the beginning, that it's also about human policies that make going to work more favorable. So I think in Zimbabwe we have tried to look at policies that look at both the men and the women, but things like maternity, as I've mentioned, will affect women, and those policies are moving forward. So yeah, I think the workspaces are trying.
Do you agree that they have fair policies in the workspace?
I think that whilst there's been an effort and a lot of the things are already enshrined, has already been said, but I think that there's an opportunity to do more for organizations and for companies, to do more than the bare minimum that the Constitution says you must do. I think that there's an opportunity for us to say within organizations, I mean, it doesn't take anything from an organization to put in place paternity leave. We're still in a country where paternity leave is unheard of. But that simply assumes that in the early life of a child, it is the woman who is the only person who can assume any responsibility and does not need support from a spouse, or in an instance where she's working on something in the workplace and she really needs to go back to work early, that the husband can play a bigger role. So for me, there's an opportunity to create a more enabling environment. We look at the issues you look at issues, simply things like flexible working policies, that would allow a woman to balance the various roles that she plays so that she can also be the best that she can be. I think that companies have an opportunity, especially in this month. We've all seen, the glossy pictures that have been put out on all newspapers and everything else. And for me, I think it's good because we do have successful women out there. We've showcased them to show the young girls that it is possible. But it's to say that as we reflect and we sit around the boardrooms, what is it that we can do to create a more enabling environment to allow women in their various life stages to be the best that they can be? Because research already proves that diversity and allowing women to be the best that they can be is actually beneficial for the company. So it only makes sense for companies to step forward. So for me, there is still a lot of space for companies to introspect and say, what else can we do?
Florence, you are in one of the most controversial industries in this country where, we've heard reports that women are not given powerful positions in the media industry mostly. And if they do given a powerful position in the media industry, in certain organizations, women are earning less than their male subordinates. And this has been brought up in a number of platforms to say, how can women have, it's like they've decorated a position, so to speak. What are your comments on that?
Well, I can't argue against that it's not happening, but where I'm coming from, I mean, men and women are treated equally, and everyone gets a position according to their qualifications and their ability to perform. Really, it's really about performance that determines whatever position you get. I'm talking about the organization that I lead. I do know that there are stories that come in the newspapers and stuff like that, but I can't speak to that because I would need evidence to the fact that's happening and how it's happening and why it's happening. But I come back to the same point that I mentioned earlier on, that really success is about working hard. We know that historically women have been marginalized. We must keep that in mind. But while we keep that in mind, if we just continue to say there should be laws that are biased against women, which they should be, but we need to encourage women really to take their positions in whatever sphere and go out there. We need to build that confidence. Start from early childhood. Give the girl child that confidence. I remember if you've read book 4, you should have at your age, book 4. My story is in that book. Those kinds of stories must be told. There's room at the top. That's book 4, where Florence Sigudu's story of it being a bank manager is in that story, to encourage young people that anything is possible. You can do whatever you want.
Okay, so are you saying that we should tone down affirmative action?
No, not at all. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that while there's affirmative action, then the women must stand up and be counted. Affirmative action has been there, but we don't see the women coming forward. While that enabling environment is being created, let's encourage each other. I think we are our own enemies also as women. We do not encourage each other, or if another woman succeeds, we don't really prop them up. Women, again, someone was saying women are the voters in this country. They are the largest number in this country, but you find when they go to vote, they vote for a man. Why are women doing that?
Because it's only a man whose name will be there.
No, because
because the women
But
women themselves have not gone.
But names are being called for now to go and register to vote and also to stand up as MP, and we just sitting there and not wanting to come forward. Maybe their husband says you can't do this and the other. Women should move forward, come forward with their skills, and then we should vote for them.
I'm glad you brought up the issue of the socialization, the issue of patriarchy, the issue of gender roles.
Yeah.
In as much as women might want to come forward, maybe they have all this pile of responsibilities that they have to do. So as women that have a lot to, maybe you are in these positions, how do you strike that balance? It's always that question to say, how do you strike that balance between what you have to do in the workspace, in the public sphere, and what you are expected to do as a woman in our society, in our culture, to say these are the gender roles that are expected of you as a woman?
I also, Mona Lisa, I also believe that our definition of success is also skewed. And sometimes as human beings, we need to sit down and say, what is wrong with a woman sitting in the rural areas, planting her field, happy with her kids, and doing that for the rest of her life? And she's content with that. Why do we believe that sometimes success is about women driving big cars, being CEOs and everything? That definition of success for me is actually another part of the problem. Because sometimes there's nothing wrong with being the best person who's selling mealie meal or selling groundnuts, because it is that. So it is the stories. She talked about her story, that the danger with single stories, which the capitalist workspace brings, is that the danger of a single story is it defines women to be successful because you are going to work and you're a CEO. Mm-hmm. You can be a successful housewife and be content with that. So that single story is not untrue, as Adichie says, but it is not complete. So what is the completeness? And part of our affirmative action and part of our stories of loving ourselves and respecting ourselves as women is to actually say, what are these stories that we talk about to each other? And we say a pat on the back for being just the woman that you are, and actually saying you are a radio person, and that's very good. You speak very well. I like Miss Reid, for instance. She does very well. She doesn't have to be the CEO. She doesn't have to be Susan. But in that sphere, she's very good. So another thing that the men continue to make us believe is that if you're not in a position that a man is,
then you're not as successful.
Then you're not a successful person. So the definition of success,
subjective.
I believe, is...
Yeah, and I agree with that, because success is an individual thing.
Yes.
And I think sometimes we spend too much time judging the next person and evaluating the next person. And it's not about that. Success, to me, is about, and this is why when I talk about mentorship and how we mentor young people, it is not about creating mini-me's and other people who will then define success the way I've defined success. It's about people becoming the best or the best version of themselves that they want to be. And I think for me, that is holistic. And for me, when it comes to success in the workplace, depending on what's happening and the life stage that the person is in, this is where enabling environments are useful, because people go through different things. For somebody who's got a young child, for example, coming into work first thing in the morning may be a problem. But for example, if they're enabled and they can work from home, they may actually be able to do that and contribute. But I think the beauty of diversity, I think within society, within us as women, the different things that drive us, I think we must respect that and love ourselves for that and appreciate each other so that we're not judging each other. I mean, look at some of the barriers that traditionally people are viewed to create. You know, we look at each other and we judge each other on what is the person wearing, what is it doing. I can't count the number of times I've been called a man. simply because I
Your
don't
short
do
hair.
yeah. But it's my choice, it's who I am. And I think sometimes we create these barriers that are necessary and we judge each other. But success and what is good to me and what makes me whole is what is important, because I think that is what we sought. And for me, if you talk about affirmative action and empowerment, that is what real empowerment is when you are able to become who you want to be, and there is no pressure for you to become something else. But I think what we are talking about when we meet young people is for the young people who want to be something else, who are driving towards something else. Maybe they want to be successful in a particular industry, in the workplace. And I believe that as women, we have pushed against insurmountable challenges where we were socialized differently and people have come through. So I think that sometimes we are very hard on ourselves as women in terms of, the need to push. I think that as women and as human beings, we have come a long way. But I do believe that for that journey to continue, and if as organizations and people in organization, we understand the beauty and the value and the profitability of diversity and allowing everybody to thrive, then we would create a space that allows everybody to thrive and become the best version of themselves, and they'll contribute in whatever way. And I think that is important.
All right, so what I'm picking up from this conversation, in as much as there's certain barriers in our society, in our laws, in our policies, there are certain barriers that women are creating for themselves by competing with each other, by creating a definition of success. Like you said, everybody has their definition of success. I want to bring in another aspect of how we socialize and how maybe I don't want to say the older generation, but maybe how our culture is put to say, ukazodzidza stereke unozoshaya murume, ukazodaiso. It's real within young people, and you don't want to set your standards too high because you also want to settle down and get married. How would you advise women who are so aspirational, want to be something in society, and want to achieve their best version of success, to strike that balance and also just not to be judged by society, really?
Yeah, so I think, so for me personally, to be quite honest, I think that I respect culture and the role that it plays, but I think that there is a space for each individual to find themselves. So for me, part of that space is whatever culture says and whatever the norms say, what is it that you want to be? If I have a conversation with a young person, is to say, what is it that you want to be? How do you want to get there? Let's talk about your journey. And then everything else needs to be managed. Whether it's a tete auntie who comes and says, no, but mwanangu, this, that, and this, mtanami ndabunga gachati, what. I mean, all of those things you can manage, but you're responsible to yourself. You're accountable to yourself to be the best version of yourself. And I think for me, you need to find that inner strength to manage everything else. And I always say, sitting around this table, I'm an auntie to somebody. She's a tete to somebody. We are mothers, we are gogos, we are maininis. So we have a responsibility not to be, to wear different hats. And sometimes we do that as people, right? Valetta in the workplace is different from Valetta the auntie. When I'm now the auntie, I'm going back and saying, when I'm in the workplace, I'm saying, you go girl, push for that career. We have to become whole people so that when we are talking to the young ladies that we are aunties to, we're giving them holistic advice that combines our career, what we've learned, the tradition and what we think, and teaching them to balance this thing and find themselves. And I think when you go through all of these things, one of the things I continually still struggle with is just carving out time for myself, to be myself, not the mother, the wife, the one who's the not banking director, but just to be myself. And I think we need to find that so we're in touch with who we are and develop that strength to push our own agenda as individuals.
Maybe I'll also engage Florence in this conversation. What are your comments to the issue that we have just brought up?
Difficult one, really, when you are a girl child, to strike that balance. It's a lot of work. You are a mother, you are a grandmother, you are a CEO, you are a director in an organization, or you are someone holding a responsible position, because culture expects you to play your role in all those spheres where you are a tete amai or whatever you are. You need really to strike that balance. While I agree with my colleagues here that everyone can carve their way in terms of what they want to do, We want to hear a paradigm shift. We want things to change, right? We are saying 50-50. It's not going to happen if we let everybody just sit back and progress slowly. That's why we are on this drive to say women must really focus so that if we want more women in parliament, where will they come from if everybody's just developing at their own pace? We need really to push. That push is required because that's what we're crying for. When will that 50-50 ever happen? It will not happen if it's a slow progress to that target. It will be very slow. It will not happen. And we'll continue to complain. Men are doing this to us. I know that. We all know that. But let's not focus on that, because once you convince yourself that this man is doing this to me, you are already bringing yourself down by entertaining that idea in your mind. There are very few people who will be able to manage that and then move forward. Let's forget about the things that are happening around us and just move forward. If you want to be a pilot, go ahead and do that. If you want to be an MD of a bank, go ahead and do that and forget about what the men are doing to focus on your target. And just get there, get on with it and get it. If you want to be a member of parliament, go and put your name forward, campaign. If you fail, try again. I think, I agree that there are all those challenges. We all know about them. What I think is that we're focusing too much on all those things so that, all right, now understand this is where you are. You know, to then get somebody to pick them up out of all that, it's going to be difficult. Let them move forward, right? And make sure that, you know, when they meet all those challenges, you are there, everyone is there. We are the role models, we are the mentors. We then assist them. All right, those are the challenges you meet, and here, this is how we navigate.
I want to bring in an aspect that I think is very real for a lot of young women in different workspaces. And I'm getting a sense that in this conversation, to some extent, we are sort of like overlooking the issues. I get the point of what you're saying. Yes, women should take a stand and do what they're supposed to do. But I'm getting the sense that sometimes we seem to be overlooking the challenges that actually women are facing.
Yes.
Like I did say earlier, people have different life stories. And the issue that I want to bring in is the issue of sexual harassment in the workplace, right? You have found your space and you want to move forward, but you know, you have this boss who says, you know what, if you want to climb the ladder, sometimes it's very subtle messages. How does a woman handle that? And what are your comments to situations like that? And Chipo, you seem to be wanting to answer this question also, maybe because you are in the human capital consultancy industry.
Well, at first I was just going to comment.
You can go ahead.
Especially on situations of positions where we are saying women should take those positions. But the socialization issue is a very big issue. And the cultural issues are very big issues. Because for me to even make that choice of wanting to be an MP, I can't do it. As much as when I'm sitting with other women, they say, oh, Chipo, you know what, you're very clever and everything. Why? It never even crosses my mind that I'm actually a good orator.
That is wrong.
The reason why
you must not let that deter you.
I mustn't. But the reality on the ground is, and this is a real story that happened to me, and I was sharing it, and I've shared it with my male colleagues. That I went to a function. There were men there who are my colleagues that I work with. At that function, there were certain things and certain conversations that were happening. 2 women stood up and they went into the house. The stories were so exciting, I wanted to join in. I felt, nobody told me to stand up, but I felt it was not proper for me to continue sitting with the men whilst the other 2 women have gone into the house.
Because of how you're socialized.
Because of how I'm socialized. So I said, I need to unpack this. Because why did I do that? Why did I stand up and do it?
Exactly.
But because I'm a human being who doesn't live in a vacuum, it is very difficult. I've chosen to be called Mrs. Ndudzo, and it comes with a price of socialization. So when you are Mrs. Ndudzo and you're going there, you have to as a young woman, and these are the issues that you've got to say, if I get married, and this is the reality, you're making a choice of getting into an institution that will not treat you as the managing director of Barclays Bank or whatever. You're going to get there, and there's going to be another legalistic perspective. There's going to be Bamkuru, Sekuru, whatever, who come into your family and say those things. And those are the realities. And how do you come out and make that. So you've got to tell these young people these
Exactly.
choices and say, when you choose to get married in an African setting, these are the realities. If you choose to speak out and say inandinzwarwe and whatever, fair and fine, but remember you've made that choice and you've gotten into another institution that requires you to do this. We're talking about the church setting, for instance. If you choose to go into a church and wear that uniform, you must know it comes with a whole lot of other things for Kunzimaiwe batch. So those things are real for women. So as much as, and just to agree with you about being a human being, is there are also a lot of men with no confidence. There are also a lot of men who could be CEOs that women have jumped over because they're more confident. So the psychology of it.
So there's so many aspects to this that we can't
and what
overlook.
we're basically
really.
saying to young women is, if I see women, like in my workspace, I've got young girls that have come from the University of Zimbabwe, deliberately work with us, and all I can do, like you said, like she said, from TransMedia, sorry, Mrs. Sigudu, Florence, like Florence said, is I must be the best that I can be so that they emulate. So these young people say, when you speak, we like it. When you do this, we like it. When you travel, we like it. So they become that. And I can only tell them my story and hope it inspires them.
I think one of the worst things that we can become as women who have come up in industry is to almost have a martyr syndrome, where we believe that because we fought through certain battles and because we overcame these battles, therefore everybody must be able to.
Absolutely.
I think the trick, what we need to be fighting for, is to come at this thing from a position of empathy, from a position of understanding that, you know what, when I was going through this, I couldn't see maybe that there were these other doors that were open because I was stuck in this. So if you're talking about a young person who is in an organization trying to come up in their sexual abuse and somebody's making unwanted advances, for that young person going through that at that particular point in time, they probably can't see the 20 options that we can see sitting around this table. And therefore we need to come at this from a position of empathy, to understand that in the space that they're in, they can't see the options that they have. And if we come at it from a position of empathy, then you can help them to say, actually, these are the options that you have. You can do 1, 2, 3, 4, and we help them up. But I think if we become martyrs that say, oh no, I was sexually harassed and look at it, I turned it fine, I fought him off and I'm fine, then we're not helping. We also have a responsibility, I think, as leaders in corporate and leaders in society, to say whatever created a situation where girls can be sexually abused and it's okay, how do we help change that? Do we make sure that organizations that we work in have clear whistleblowing policies where these girls can find safe
not even
places?
in the workspace. I'll have you know that in this country, tertiary institutions, only about 21 only have sexual harassment policies. So if it's something that's turning around from its tertiary institution, imagine in a workspace.
And this is where I come from to say that enabling policies, there is quite a lot of work. But I think sometimes because we've come through some of these things, we then don't go back and look at it and say, how do we make it better for those that are coming up so they don't have to go through our struggles?
It's not just policy, because there are so many good policies, and I think most companies everywhere in the world, we write up diversity policies, all these policies. It's not even about that. It's even about, how does the men in this country believe what sexual harassment is? So for me, it's such a bigger conversation, because for starters, men don't even know that it's sexually harassing someone when they say akabatana simbi, you know, by the combis and everything. They don't even know that.
No, you're right.
The women themselves don't even know that. For most women, they don't even know. So it becomes, so back to socialization. How have we been socialized?
It is so true. And those are challenges that the young people really meet. That is where the mentorship programs really come in. That, you know, if a young person has got a mentor, then, you know, whenever they have a major challenge like that, they can come and say, how do I navigate? I've said that before, because I'm aware that there are so many challenges, pitfalls that young people can fall into. And they just need someone to hold their hand and to assist them to get over that. Sexual harassment, a big issue, has always been a big issue for our young people. Some of them really think it's good because they get all the attention. It is wrong. And you know, just by saying, this is what has happened, and other young people see that you have accepted it, also go ahead and accept to be harassed.
Okay.
When we should really make sure that we put a stop to this. And mentorship programs critical in organizations. Policies are there, but policies are not helping. Young people need to really learn it from those that have gone before them. You mentioned about being Mrs. Ndudzo. That comes with a price. For all women, women who are successful, being married comes with a price.
Yes.
Because once you're successful, your husband feels challenged, and thinks that maybe you are challenging him just because
we really have to round off this conversation. Very interesting conversation. I'm sure we have another platform to talk about it, and I'm glad you ended on the note on mentorship. That is a very important thing. A young person needs someone to hold their hands. We have to round off now. Thank you so much, ladies, for coming through to share your life stories as well as opening up on what you have had to deal with and how you also assisting young people. I had Valetta Muthimukulu, the banking director of Barclays Zimbabwe. I also had Florence Sigudu Matambo, the TransMedia Corporation Chief Executive Officer, and Chipo Ndudzo, the Managing Director of Providence Human Capital Consultancy. Interesting conversation, women empowerment as we celebrate Women's History Month here on ZFM Stereo. Ladies, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure we'll create another platform for this conversation. I am Lisa Dube, and you're tuned into the platform. Coming up next is Chila with Our Story. Keep it ZFM Stereo.
The platform. Step up and speak up.
1, 2, 3, let's go. Let's fly. We're One Direction. Hello, this is Maroon 5.
Hey, it's Katy Perry. This is your girl Rihanna.
Hey, we're Imagine Dragons.
Let's go. Today's best mix. Hey, I'm Taylor Swift.
Hey, this is Ed Sheeran. I'm Calvin Harris.
All the hits.
Come on, we gon' make you feel good.
So good, so good. Music that makes you feel good all day, every day.
Z. Our story. On ZFM Stereo. Chill on Our Story on ZFM Stereo. Our Story, a narration without borders. Our Story on ZFM Stereo.
manheru akanaka vateereri tinokuchingamidzai pachirongwa Our Story, a narration without borders. Zita rangu ndinonzi Chila Nire Sekuru Mutimba nepasi. Ndinodayira muri kutinzwa zvakajeka kumativi mana kwose kwamakateerera muri, varikateerera vari kuChamhembe, kumaodzanyemba, kumabhazuva nekumadokero. Nhasi muchirongwa tiri kukurukura nenhau yejeko. Jeko rinonetsa vanhukadzi vazhinji. Ndinonzwa vamwe vachiti harirapike, vamwe vachiti rinorapika. Nhasi pachirongwa tadaidza vana mbuya vachange vachikurukura pamusoro pejeko, kuti mhando dzejeko dziripo ndedzipi, uye rinorapwa sei, rinokonzerwa nei, chirwerere chinotapukira, kana chichitapukira chinotapukira sei. Muchirongwa tadaidza muchembere mbuya Chihwa. Tinokuchingamidzai pachirongwa.
Tinotenda makadi sekuru Nire, makadi vadare vese nevasekuru vese akateerera pamhepo panguva inei.
Mudare wedu wechipiri tina mbuya Mavhu. Tinokuchingamidzai pachirongwa Shava.
Notenda makadi sekuru nhere makadi yenyu rushinji rweZimbabwe.
Mudaro wedu wechitatu tina Mbuya Muchadura Mamoyo, tinokuchingamidzai muchembere.
Kwazivai rushinji rweZimbabwe, kwazivai Matimana.
Ndichatanga nemi Mbuya Mavhu kuti chinonzi jeko chii uye rinokonzerwa nechii?
Ya, ndinotenda zvangu sekuru nhere. Ndingati chinonzi jeko. Jeko rinowanikwa pamunhu wese anonzi munhukadzi uye ari mwana unongozvarwa uinaro. Rinozotanga kuoneka panguva yaunonzi wakura, panguva yako yekunzi mukadzi akuda kuteera kubva zera. Saka ndo panotanga kuwanikwa jeko ipapo. Saka ndinoti jeko unotongozvarwa uinaro. Kumunhu wese mukadzi anotongozvarwa aine jeko. Riine mucherechedzo wekuzonzi wakura. Pakukura paye ndo panotangira marwadzo ejeko. Jeko rinotanga kurwadza mudumbu kana uchinge wakura wabva zera. Mudumbu mako, saka tinoriti rinonzi masunungure anosunungura mudumbu panguva dzekukura kwemunhukadzi. Saka kana rakusunungura rinotanga kutorwadzisa mudumbu. Jeko iri rinosiyana siyana. Kune jeko rinonzi gono, kozoita rinonzi gadzi. Iri rinonzi gono iri ndo rinonyanya kurwadza, rakatosiyana negadzi. Rinonzi gono mabasa aro rinotanga kukurwadzisa pasi peguvhu richisunungura, chiri chiratidzo chekukura. Rine richisunungura mudumbu, kusunungura kukura kwaunenge waita. Saka naizvozvo mukusunungura ikoko rinozokurwadzisa mudumbu zvokuti unorutsa, ugomburuka, ugochenuruka kunga munhu azorwa dota. Zvadaro rinenge richitaridza kuti kumberi kwekurwadziwa kana svondo kana mazuva mairi matatu usati watarisana nemazuva ako rinenge rozoteera kumashure. Zvichidaro kana riri gadzi, gadzi rinongosunungura zvakare sekusunungura kunoita gono, asi anozosiyana pamarwadzo, anosiyana nekuti gono rinorutsisa, rinorwadzisa mudumbu pasi peguvhu musana. Saka zvinotoita sekunge munhu uya atarisana nekuti akurwadziwa nepamuviri, rinorwadza zvakanyanya. Iri gadzi iri rinongorwadza riine mucherechedzo